There are moments in life when we are faced with words that wound, with actions that belittle, and with situations that challenge our dignity. It is during these times, perhaps, that our response becomes most important. You see, there is a strength in silence that far surpasses the urge to retaliate, far beyond the impulse to defend ourselves against those who seek to undermine us. It's not simply a matter of holding back words. It's about understanding the deeper wisdom that lies in restraint. When we choose silence over conflict, we choose peace over chaos, and in doing so, we empower ourselves to rise above the pettiness of others. True strength, after all, is not found in the loudest voice, but in the quiet courage of the one who chooses to walk away unscathed by the words that would otherwise wound them. This, my friends, is the lesson we must learn. To stay silent when others disrespect us, for in that silence we command a power greater than any spoken retaliation could ever offer. 1. The power of silence. Rising above disrespect. 2. Finding strength in restraint, the art of staying silent. 3. The silent strength, how choosing quiet can transform you. 4. The quiet warrior, mastering the skill of silent responses. 5. Beyond words, the hidden power of silence in the face of disrespect. In the journey of life, there will always be moments when we are tested by the actions and words of others. It could come in the form of harsh criticism, hurtful comments, or unwarranted disrespect. These experiences, while difficult to endure, are not uncommon. Yet how we choose to respond to them can make all the difference. Too often, we feel the urge to react, to defend ourselves, to shout back and assert our own worth. But in doing so, we often find ourselves caught in a cycle of bitterness and frustration, furthering the conflict rather than resolving it. True power, however, lies in the ability to rise above such moments without lowering ourselves to the same level of hostility. There is an untold strength in choosing silence, in standing firm in our dignity without uttering a single word in retaliation. In this silence, we are not weak. Rather, we are displaying a remarkable fortitude that comes from an understanding of our own worth. When we refrain from responding in kind, we take control of the situation and prevent it from dictating our emotional state. We break free from the chains of reaction and instead embrace the freedom that comes with choosing how we will respond. Imagine a person who, in the face of insult or belittlement, chooses to remain quiet. This individual does not shrink or withdraw in fear, but rather remains poised and composed. The silence is not born of weakness, but from a place of inner strength. It is a conscious choice to preserve one's peace and dignity, even in the midst of chaos. The power of silence lies not only in the avoidance of conflict, but also in its ability to send a clear message. The person who remains silent in the face of disrespect is not a passive participant, but someone who is unshaken by the attempts of others to disturb their peace. In life, we often mistake silence for weakness. We equate it with submission, with an inability to stand up for ourselves. But in truth, silence can be one of the most courageous acts of all. When we choose not to engage in the battle of words, we are saying that we do not need to prove our worth to those who seek to undermine us. We already know who we are. We do not require validation from those who seek to diminish us. The act of silence becomes a declaration of our self-respect and our unwillingness to lower ourselves to the level of disrespect. There is also an incredible power in the space that silence creates. It is within this space that clarity and reflection can arise. When we are not busy reacting, we have the opportunity to process the situation more clearly. We are able to discern whether a response is truly needed or if the best course of action is simply to walk away and let the moment pass. In this silence, we gain perspective and wisdom, qualities that are often lost in the heat of confrontation. By learning to stay silent when others disrespect us, we also learn the art of self-control. We recognize that we cannot control the actions of others, but we can control our own reactions. In a world that constantly seeks to provoke us, the ability to remain calm and composed becomes a powerful tool for personal growth. It allows us to navigate life's challenges with grace and dignity, free from the burden of resentment or anger. When we rise above disrespect and choose silence, we are not allowing others to win. Instead, we are choosing to protect our inner peace. We are not bound by the words or actions of others, but are instead free to live according to our values and principles. In this way, silence becomes not an act of passivity, but one of profound strength. It is a choice to rise above the noise and the negativity that surrounds us, to live with integrity, and to walk with the confidence that comes from knowing we have the power to choose how we respond to the world. In a world where we are constantly encouraged to speak our minds, to defend ourselves, and to assert our rights, the notion of restraint can often seem counterintuitive. We are taught from a young age to stand up for ourselves, to respond when provoked, and to never let others walk all over us. Yet, there is an art in restraint, a quiet strength that many fail to recognize. When we choose to stay silent in the face of disrespect, we are not yielding to others, but rather exercising a profound form of self-restraint. It is in these moments of restraint that we discover the true power of silence. The ability to remain silent in the face of provocation requires a strength that is not immediately apparent. It is not the strength of force or will, but rather the strength of inner peace. It is the strength to resist the urge to react, to lash out, or to retaliate. It requires the understanding that our dignity is not contingent upon the opinions or actions of others. The quiet person who chooses restraint does so not because they are weak, but because they understand that there is a greater strength in holding back. When we remain silent, we take back control of the situation. We refuse to be governed by the words or actions of others, no matter how hurtful they may be. In choosing restraint, we are not simply avoiding conflict, we are also preserving our emotional energy. How often do we allow ourselves to be drained by the need to respond to every slight or insult? How much time do we waste in an attempt to prove ourselves to those who do not deserve our attention? By learning the art of restraint, we stop giving away our energy and instead focus on what truly matters: our peace of mind. Restraint is not passive, nor is it about surrendering our voice. It is about recognizing that not every battle is worth fighting. There are times when words only escalate a situation, when speaking in anger or frustration will only deepen the conflict. In such moments, silence becomes a shield, protecting us from the storm of negativity that surrounds us. Rather than engaging in a fruitless exchange, we choose to withdraw into the quiet strength that silence affords. There is also something profoundly freeing in restraint. It frees us from the need to constantly prove ourselves, to defend our honor, or to seek approval from others. When we hold our tongue in moments of disrespect, we communicate that we are secure in our sense of self-worth. Our value is not defined by the opinions of others, nor by their ability to diminish us with their words. By choosing to remain silent, we reaffirm our own integrity, and we empower ourselves to rise above the noise that seeks to disturb our peace. The art of staying silent is also a practice in reflection. Silence allows us the space to process our emotions and consider the best course of action. In the absence of immediate reaction, we can take the time to reflect on the situation, to understand its deeper meaning, and to determine whether a response is even necessary. In this way, silence offers us the opportunity to act thoughtfully, rather than out of impulse or emotion. When we choose to stay silent, we are also choosing to let go of the need for validation. The person who is truly strong in restraint does not require the approval of others. They have learnt that their worth is intrinsic, not contingent upon external affirmation. This realization grants us the freedom to navigate life without being constantly tossed about by the whims and judgments of others. The strength of silence lies in its ability to transform us. It teaches us patience, self-control, and emotional resilience. It reveals that true strength does not come from the loudest voice, but from the calmest spirit. In a world that often rewards the bold and the brash, the art of staying silent is a rare and valuable skill. It is the ability to rise above the trivial and the hurtful, to protect our peace, and to move forward with grace and dignity. In the practice of restraint, we uncover a strength that is far more enduring than any fleeting victory gained through retaliation. There is a certain strength in silence, a quiet force that often goes unnoticed in a world that celebrates noise, action, and assertiveness. We are conditioned to think that power comes from speaking out, from standing tall and making our presence known. Yet, the most transformative strength is not found in the loudest voice, but in the calm, steady presence of someone who chooses to remain silent when faced with adversity. Choosing quiet is not a sign of weakness. On the contrary, it is one of the greatest demonstrations of strength one can possess. When we respond to disrespect, conflict, or provocation with silence, we take a powerful step toward transforming ourselves. This silence is not the absence of words because we have nothing to say. It is the deliberate choice to refrain from reacting. In this moment, we allow ourselves to rise above the immediate impulse to fight back, to defend, or to argue. Instead, we create a space where peace, clarity, and control can enter. Silence, in this sense, becomes a powerful tool of self-mastery. By choosing quiet, we choose not to be governed by our emotions or the actions of others. We retain the freedom to act in accordance with our values, rather than being swept up in the tides of external conflict. Choosing silence does not mean surrendering or accepting disrespect. It means choosing a response that is rooted in self-respect. The person who chooses silence in the face of adversity does so not because they are afraid or incapable of defending themselves, but because they understand that their dignity is not dependent on the opinions or actions of others. They know that the louder one reacts, the more they risk being pulled into a struggle that serves no purpose. True strength lies in the ability to stand firm, without the need to prove oneself through words or force. In silence, we also discover the strength of reflection. In moments when others would expect us to react, we can use the opportunity to pause and reflect on the situation. This time of stillness allows us to consider our options, to understand the deeper motivations behind the disrespect or conflict, and to decide whether a response is truly necessary. Often, when we allow ourselves this time, we realize that silence is the best response, for it preserves our peace and prevents us from engaging in unnecessary conflict. The transformative power of silence also lies in its ability to cultivate emotional resilience. When we remain silent in the face of hurtful words or actions, we are not denying our feelings, but rather learning to control them. Silence teaches us that we do not need to react immediately to every slight or insult. We can choose to absorb the moment, reflect on it, and then move on without allowing it to affect our inner peace. In this way, silence becomes a form of emotional strength, one that allows us to maintain our composure and protect our sense of self. As we practice silence in challenging moments, we also learn to detach ourselves from the need for validation. So often, we find ourselves reacting to others because we want to defend our reputation or prove our worth. But when we choose quiet, we are saying that our value is not contingent upon the opinions of others. We know who we are, and we do not need to prove ourselves to anyone. This detachment from the need for validation frees us from the constant need to defend, explain, or justify ourselves. It allows us to walk through life with a sense of quiet confidence, knowing that our worth is intrinsic and unshakable. Choosing silence can also transform our relationships. By responding to conflict with quiet strength, we create space for understanding and resolution. Rather than escalating a situation with anger or defensiveness, silence opens the door to deeper reflection, empathy, and growth. It allows us to approach challenges with calmness and clarity, and in doing so, we foster an environment of mutual respect and peace. In the end, silent strength is about choosing the path of dignity and self-mastery. It is about resisting the temptation to react impulsively and instead embracing the power of thoughtful restraint. By choosing silence in moments of disrespect, we transform not just the situation at hand, but ourselves. We become more resilient, more composed, and more attuned to our inner strength. In the quiet moments of life, we find the true power that comes from knowing we are in control of our responses, and that peace is always a choice. In a world that constantly urges us to speak up, to be heard, and to assert ourselves, there is something profoundly transformative about the quiet warrior, the one who, rather than engaging in the noise of conflict, chooses the path of silent responses. This quiet strength is not born from weakness, but from the mastery of self-control, wisdom, and the deep understanding that not every moment requires a verbal reaction. The quiet warrior understands that true power does not lie in the loudness of one's voice, but in the ability to stand strong in silence, knowing when to engage and when to hold back. To master the skill of silent responses is to learn that words, though powerful, are not always the answer. In the face of disrespect, provocation, or even hurtful words, the quiet warrior does not rush to defend, to explain, or to argue. They know that such actions, while seemingly justified, often only fuel the fire of conflict. Instead, they remain calm, composed, and unshaken, allowing their silence to speak louder than any words could. This silence is not an act of submission or avoidance. It is a conscious choice to remain above the fray, to maintain one's integrity and peace in the midst of turmoil. The quiet warrior possesses a remarkable self-awareness. They understand that silence is not a passive retreat, but a deliberate strategy. In moments of disrespect or conflict, they do not seek to prove their worth or engage in a futile battle. They recognize that their value is not determined by the words or actions of others, and thus they do not feel compelled to defend or justify themselves. By mastering the skill of silent responses, they protect their inner peace and their emotional well-being. The quiet warrior knows that their strength comes from within, and that it is far more potent than any external challenge. The ability to remain silent in the face of adversity requires a deep well of emotional intelligence. It is not simply about choosing to hold back words, it is about understanding the true nature of the situation and choosing the most powerful course of action. The quiet warrior knows that silence is often more profound than speaking. In silence, they are not merely holding their tongue, they are reflecting, processing, and discerning the best response. They allow themselves the space to see beyond the immediate conflict and to assess whether a response is necessary at all. In this way, the quiet warrior possesses a kind of inner discipline that sets them apart. They do not react impulsively or out of anger. Instead, they pause, reflect, and then decide. This discipline in response creates a sense of emotional stability that is incredibly powerful. It allows them to navigate life's challenges with grace, calmness, and clarity. By choosing silence, they rise above the noise of the world and refuse to be dragged into battles that serve no greater purpose. Moreover, the quiet warrior embodies the strength of resilience. While others may react with frustration, anger, or bitterness, the quiet warrior remains steadfast. They do not allow the actions of others to disturb their peace or dictate their emotional state. In silence, they display a quiet resilience that is rooted in self-awareness and self-respect. Their strength is not visible in loud confrontations, but in the quiet moments when they choose not to engage in the cycle of conflict. The mastery of silent responses also deepens our relationships with others. It teaches us to listen more than we speak, to understand before we react. When we respond with silence, we open the door to deeper communication. We give others the space to reflect on their own words and actions. In this way, silence can lead to greater understanding and growth, both for ourselves and those around us. Ultimately, the quiet warrior understands that true strength is not about defeating others through words or actions, but about mastering oneself. By learning the skill of silent responses, we gain control over our emotions, our reactions, and our lives. We become resilient, composed, and empowered, able to face the challenges of life without being swayed by the opinions or behaviors of others. The quiet warrior stands firm, not in the loudness of their words, but in the power of their silence, knowing that in choosing restraint, they are the ones who truly hold the strength. In life, we are often confronted with moments where words can wound and actions can belittle. These encounters, sometimes intended to provoke, can stir a natural impulse to respond, to correct, or to defend. Yet, it is in these very moments that silence holds its greatest power. Beyond the spoken word, beyond the immediate reaction, lies a profound strength in choosing to remain quiet in the face of disrespect. This is not a silence born of fear or submission, but one that arises from a deeper understanding of one's worth and the futility of engaging in every conflict. When we face disrespect, the instinct to speak out, to rise in defense, can seem like the natural course. It feels right to react, to assert our dignity, to right the wrongs committed against us. But in truth, such reactions often only perpetuate the cycle of discord. They tie us to the conflict, pulling us deeper into a place of frustration and bitterness. Silence, on the other hand, offers a way out of this. It allows us to rise above the situation, to maintain our inner peace, and to keep our dignity intact. By not engaging in the battle of words, we step back and let the moment pass, without allowing it to take root in our hearts. The hidden power of silence lies in its ability to disarm. When we choose not to respond to disrespect, we rob it of its power. The one who seeks to provoke us expects a reaction, a stirring of emotion, a challenge to their words. When we deny them this, we break the pattern of conflict and refuse to be drawn into their game. In that silence, we send a clear message that we will not be manipulated or controlled by the words of others. We assert our own power by refusing to be shaken by their disrespect. But silence does more than disarm the other person. It also transforms us. When we choose quiet in the face of disrespect, we take control of our own emotional state. We refuse to be at the mercy of the actions or opinions of others. Our emotional responses are no longer dictated by external forces, but are instead governed by our own inner strength. In this way, silence becomes an act of self-mastery, a demonstration of emotional resilience. We do not allow the words of others to define us or disrupt our sense of self-worth. Beyond the disarming power of silence, there is also a deep wisdom that comes with choosing not to speak. In the quiet space that follows a moment of disrespect, we have the opportunity to reflect. We can take a step back, process our emotions, and gain perspective. We are no longer reacting impulsively, but are allowing ourselves the time to discern the best course of action. Perhaps, in some cases, silence reveals that no response is needed at all. The wisdom of silence comes in understanding that not every conflict requires a resolution or an explanation. Sometimes, the most powerful response is to let go, to allow the situation to dissolve without our intervention. The hidden power of silence also lies in its ability to protect our peace. In the face of disrespect, we are often tempted to prove ourselves, to show that we are not weak or passive. Yet the act of defending ourselves through words can often drain us, leaving us exhausted and emotionally depleted. Silence, however, shields us from this emotional toll. By choosing not to engage, we preserve our energy, our peace, and our sense of calm. It is a protection against the chaos that others may seek to impose upon us. Choosing silence is also an act of wisdom in understanding that words are not always the best tool for communication. Too often we speak out of anger, frustration, or hurt, and in doing so, we create further damage. In contrast, silence provides a space where clarity can emerge. It allows us to gather our thoughts and to respond, if necessary, in a manner that is thoughtful, measured, and composed. Silence is not a void, but a space where understanding and clarity have room to flourish. Ultimately, the hidden power of silence is the power to rise above, It is the ability to stand firm in the face of disrespect without being pulled into the storm of conflict. It is a quiet strength that preserves our dignity and our peace, while disarming the forces that seek to provoke us. In choosing silence, we choose to live with integrity, to define ourselves by our actions and not the words of others. We hold the power to remain unshaken, and in doing so we find that silence is not merely the absence of words, but the presence of a far greater strength. In choosing silence, we embrace a strength that is often invisible to the world, but profoundly transformative within ourselves. It is not weakness, but a deliberate act of self-mastery, protecting our peace and dignity in the face of adversity. The quiet warrior knows that true power lies not in loud words or reactions, but in the quiet resilience to rise above disrespect. So, let us choose silence, not as surrender, but as a powerful tool to preserve our integrity and peace, letting our actions, not our words, define who we are and what we stand for.